want to know something kind of funny? I'm busy watching my clock up here, thinking this is awesome. We can do clinic, etc. I have all this more time. The last place where I just was, I was in a different time zone by an hour, and I'm thinking it's only 11 o'clock. So I love it that you gave me the big, yeah, like, mwah. I'm so sorry. So we'll pick it up where we left off, and also move into what we had, promised and said that we would be doing after lunch, which is managing the issues also and the humans. So, comments on what's transpired this morning and how it landed. One comment or two that anybody would like to make about what you're thinking about? A relational approach, self and other, fracturing the interaction. I said a comment, not a question. We could do clinic all day, which actually I would love to do. But the question was, to what extent do I feel comfortable talking with the client's lawyers rather than the clients? Or client directly rather than the lawyers. So that actually is a nice softball question for where I'd like to go right now. And if I could just hold it for a moment, because it will be on opening the process. But the answer is very. And I'll show you why. Does that surprise you? Okay. Any other comment about this morning? Sort of a way of capping it. Smiling faces, happy to see you back. Glad you returned. I love my conversations with you. Some of you saying it's different. Some of you saying I really like it. I think this could really work. I think I do a little bit of this already. It's just marvelous. So let me tell you about the research. So this comes straight out of the mediation field. It has been a longitudinal study. It has also been one that has included thousands of people who have participated in mediation. Now I'm going to ask you all to put your phones away. Put them aside. Put them where you can't see them unless you are expecting an emergency phone call. The New York Times did a nice little piece on this last summer where they did another little research study in New York City where business people, businessmen and businesswomen, many lawyers who were having lunch. The mere presence of a cell phone on the lunch table, whether it was a white tablecloth restaurant or whether it was quick fast food, the mere presence of a cell phone on the table, people reported, distracted them, and the level of engagement was shallower than what it could have been. That's what was reported. Isn't that interesting? Right? Because we're split, and I can tell you about that from a brain science perspective. From a perspective of executive functioning, we can only do one executive thought at a time. So if you're having a conversation with somebody, and it is a real conversation, not a I think about those things, it's really real. I have to be very present, so I can't, if I split myself into thinking about my laundry list, or my grocery list, or my, what I need to do next, or where I need to go after lunch, etc., then I lose my presence. Anyway, so cell phones are really quite powerful in being able to distract us in those ways. Of course, if you are on a call, you take care of yourselves. So research for mediators showed that what people want the most from the mediation experience, and of course, this is right in our wheelhouse, so we loved this research, but it wasn't research that was planted by transformative mediators. It was research that was done independently from the University of Indiana, which is an incredible research. They've got a couple graduate schools there. This is what they do. If you're interested in very large research projects, there's a fantastic university for that. They looked at what people wanted most in their mediations, and there it is. They wanted to change the quality of their experience. So this is not just a nice idea that's sort of come out of theory that's been written about, which it has in other disciplines, but it's coming straight out of the mediation experience with thousands of people. If we were to condense the research, which is quite vast, it could be condensed into what people want is voice and choice. If we think about our ethical standards of practice, it is right at the heart of self-determination. The self-determination on its own is not the answer because it needs to be married with your impartiality and quality of the process, which has to do with the quality of decision making. So how it is that mediators create context, open a session, I'll do this a bit briefly, by whatever stripe you choose to mediate. We would call it an orientation to practice. An orientation to practice is premised on what you believe about conflict. It is the theory piece. So if you believe that conflict is unfolding before you and what people need is to balance power, or what people need is for you to tell them what right, who has a better case, you apply the law of the facts. Or if you believe that it's a problem and you probably have the better solution, you could tell them. I'm going through the theories, right? Power theory, rights theory, needs and interest theory. Or if you believe that what people want most is to restore a quality of their fractured interaction, that will guide what you do. But regardless of an orientation to practice, all mediations open. I'm learning from some of you, and I have seen this across the country, that there are mediators who immediately separate people. They don't even do, some people call them plenary sessions, some people call them opening sessions, right? I see that heads nodding. That would not be what is called a mediation process, just to let you know. Under the big ADR umbrella, ADR, Alternative Dispute Resolution, which was actually coined by the American Bar Association many, many years ago. Under that umbrella, neutral case evaluation is a wonderful process. It is not mediation. Separating people, the mediator doing so, without any kind of opening, would also be seen as probably not mediation either. Opening, and then your separating people could probably be challenged around self-determination right now. Are we into the business of, mediator police? No. But you will find in some states, and I would welcome West Virginia to be one of these states, come right out of the work of the Bar Association. They are interested in having processes that can help their mediators to be restored themselves when something hasn't gone well, and someone complains about it, or when they're simply practicing in a way that other people say that probably isn't good practice. So training is a huge piece for mediators being restored to learn more, etc. But there are also, instead of attorney grievance processes, there are mediator processes when something's gone wrong. That's a conversation for another time. But creating the context and opening is what every mediator should be doing if it's mediation. So, what is it that you do in creating the context? Well, through a relational lens, transformative mediation, we would actually use the language of conversation, dialogue, face-to-face interaction. We open with that. You are welcomed to this conference table or this conference room. Welcome to all of you. And I welcome you to have a conversation. A conversation with whom? Is it with Louise, the mediator? No, it is with each other. Exactly. I inform them, as you would as well, about what the mediation process is, which also includes what it isn't. And one of the key pieces around what it isn't is that I, the mediator, will not be deciding for you. We go back to our ethical standards of practice. That's self-determination, impartiality, and quality of the process. All put together. Just that statement, I will not be deciding for you. Related to that is, I will also not be telling you what to do. Impartiality, self-determination, and quality of the process. Quality of the process specifically tells us our national ethical standards. It is problematic for a mediator to mix roles. A mediator should not mix roles. In the event that a mediator believes that he or she can give information but never advice, he or she may do so, so long as consistent with the rest of the standards. Self-determination, impartiality, confidentiality, neutrality, quality of process. So when I open, I'm orienting the parties to that process and what it is that my job is and what it is that their job is to decide what they want to talk about, in what order. I also will say, if you want to stay in the same room, this is a question that was then asked of me, how comfortable am I speaking with just the parties and not counsel? And I will say in my opening all the time, I'll take what I think might be most common to you all, which would be working with 2 attorneys and 2 parties. I've been hearing from many of you. Okay. So if that were the situation that I was mediating, I'd say, welcome to all 4 of you. I also want you to know that during the mediation process, we have the rest of the day set aside, or you've come here and you've set aside 3 hours or whatever it is, that you can decide if you want to all stay in the same room. You can decide if you'd like to meet separately. And if you do decide to meet separately, you can decide, let's just say, because it will be good, I'll take Joe back here, who, let's say, is represented, you'll be his lawyer for a second, and you'll be another party, a plaintiff, and you'll be the lawyer. And I would say, to the 4 of you all might decide that, and if you tell me your name, Kat, right? And Joe, I'll talk to Joe. You guys are the parties. Say something like, Kat and Joe, you're represented, you're in good hands, I'd look to both the attorneys. You all might decide that the parties might wish to meet with each other, with me, without me, but also without your counsel. You might decide that the attorneys would like to speak to each other without your clients. You might decide that you all just want to talk with me. You might decide that the 4 of you want to talk with each other and ask me to leave. Lots of different configurations for how it is that you would like or choose to talk with each other. I just want you to know it's all part of your decision making around the quality of the process. See how I did that? Now people are very, very free to do things. Oftentimes, there is a conversation to be had between the 2 people who've often been told by the lawyers, don't talk to each other. And it's been like 6 months or 2 years. And sometimes they still see each other, but they've been told they're not supposed to talk to each other. Does that sound familiar? So they might want to be able to talk to each other or step out in the hallway, etc. And I have legions of stories where that has been the case. In fact, what's sort of popping up right now was I did mediation with all these, it was around 2 jewelry stores in a mall, and there had been a lot of theft. And anywho, they were both owned by Koreans, and there was competition between them. It had to do with an ATM machine, and people were coming to make the withdrawals. The ATM machine, anyway, there were about 8 different Korean businessmen, and I welcomed them to be able to meet in any configurations that they liked, as I always do at the outset. Anyway, we've been involved in mediation, and I don't know how many hours have gone by, it may have been like 1 or 2, and all of a sudden, one just broke into Korean, and blah, 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 and I couldn't reflect that, because I don't speak Korean, so I just simply reflected that, so you all are talking, and I just did this, like, they went out in the hallway. All of them went out in the hallway. Some of them got sent back. I just sort of watched it all happen, waited. It took a little while. It was like 10, 15 minutes. And then 2 men came back and said, thank you, Mrs. Semt. It's done. That's it. I don't know what they decided at that time out in the hallway. But I do know what I wrote up for them. And maybe that got a little changed too. But the point is that they were given permission because that's quality process. Because indeed, the conversation, the dialogue, the interaction can happen in any configuration. So simply opening a mediation in that regard is enormously helpful. I will share with you that when I work on matters that are very complex, involving people from different parts of the country, the Kloiber case was just the most recent one. It just happened to be a very celebrated case because it is the purported largest dynasty trust in the U.S. So your bar association, like the Trust and Estates group, has probably been talking about the Kloiber case the last few years. Everybody sort of waits with bated breath to see what will happen because there's been so much litigation that has come out of this huge amount of money. There were 9 law firms involved in that matter. And each of those firms was burning about $1 million a year in fees. So just to give you an idea, and when I got written into the order by a Kentucky judge to be able to mediate it, they'd already been underway for almost 6 years. So that's easy math. 9 times 6 is, all right, that's $54 million just on lawyers' fees. So, my opening was with each of the firms before we ever were bringing everyone together. I did exactly this, and one of the questions I asked them is, each firm, are there others whom you need to be talking with who are not part of this litigation or not part of this mediation? They're not listed as parties or counsel, but whom you need to have a conversation with, because I can only imagine that there are a number of paralegals at the very least who have been assigned to this matter for the last 5.5 years with a revenue stream that your law firm counts on. Do you need to have some discussions around that? You with me on this? See, quality of the process. So the opening can take place with, 1, 2, everyone, and multiple times. But always orienting the parties to the process and to each other, if you are taking a relational approach. Now, highlighting possible outcomes, and I'm going to say this next one, and some of you just might go, oh my gosh, no way! And others might say, of course, it's really the way I practice. Making non-agreement okay. Because of exactly what this amazing group said around the mediation goals, like why people come, for resolution, for restoration of relationships, cost savings, closure, self-determination, information gathering, and to foster resolution. Making non-agreement okay is an ethical standard. Because the process, self-determination, no longer reads that the mediator is to assist parties with getting to agreement. It doesn't say that anymore. Look it up, Syria. It says the mediator is to assist parties with making an uncoerced and informed decision around process and outcome. So making non-agreement okay is a really amazing, wonderful, ironically brings about more settlements, if you really believe this, than almost anything else a mediator can say. Because non-agreement being okay opens the door for restoration of relationship, if that's what the parties are after. Or cost savings in ways that they decide how to use their time and their energies, if that's what they're after. Opens the door for closure. I love when I ask about these. They're like multiple ways, for the multiple ways of getting closure. Opens the door for information gathering. That might be the purpose of why people come to mediation. I've done a number of mediations where they're in big doo-doo litigation, and they're just curious if there's a way of even carving out some piece. And sure enough, it's like unbundling. The American Bar Association came up with that great word too a number of years ago. You can unbundle a matter and mediate portions of it, but still allow people to go back to court if they're interested in precedent setting, for instance, or they're interested in getting some kind of a resolution on something that actually has some other meaning to them. It opens the door for fostering and faster resolution, if that's what they want. So, I would encourage you to use that language. You're here possibly for a resolution. Some of you may not be. You might be here for other reasons. You might be here to create terms of agreement, partial agreement, temporary agreement, complete agreement. It's the best place to have that happen if you are. You also might be here to not do any of that, and we welcome you because non-agreement is perfectly okay. See how I do that? Imagine if you're the client in mediation. How many of you have been a client in mediation? God said to you, it's a very different experience. As opposed to, I'm going to separate you, and even if I keep you together, how is it that we're going to get you to agree? Which oftentimes means that the mediator can pound on somebody until they capitulate to do something that they really didn't want to do anyway. And then they leave and they're sort of relieved that it's over with, but they go home and they say to their best friend and their wife and their husband, I'm just glad it's over with. It was okay, we got it done, but I would never want to do that again. That's not the kind of experience that I want people to leave my practice with. I want them to say, it was really worthwhile, it was hard. Not that I expect people that work for it always to be hard, but we worked hard and we got something that I never imagined we could get. And we're all happy about it. Or we might not be whistling Dixie, some people aren't. We're relieved, just like the other group, we got it over with. But I learned these things, I had no idea, I got some potentially insights about myself, or where I'm going to do some things differently, my next step, my next path. There are all kinds of things that can happen in mediation when you make non-agreement okay on the front end. And do you think I've been pushed around over the years when I've got, big billowy counsel and he said, Mrs. Evans, we thought we were coming to you because you were experienced. We are here for a settlement, and if that's not why you think we're here, then we might as well get up and walk out. All the actions right there. So I just reflect that back. Counsel, you thought you were coming to someone who's experienced. And if I'm not going to be focused on your getting settlement, you might as well just get up and walk out. I want you to know that you are always welcome to get up and walk out, and I am always open to your feedback. If settlement is your goal, then you might want to check out with whoever, Kathy, making you up, and see if that is her goal. And if it's both of your goals, then this is the greatest process to be able to make that happen. But if it isn't, then it's the greatest process to find out what can happen, and I'll help you remove the barriers. That's a different conversation, right? So everything happens as you create the context in the opening. And of course, you've got the voluntariness, neutrality, confidentiality. I say plus exceptions. We've got the national exceptions. You might have exceptions in different places where you practice. And I will presume that you know about the Mediation Act. That we have a number of acts, standardized acts, right? Like uniform acts. I don't know how many we have actually. How many do we have? A lot. 100? 100? One of my law students told me a number of years ago, I asked him to go look. It's probably been a long time. I don't know how long, 10 years since I asked. I think there were like 160 then. Lord only knows how many uniform acts we have now. But at any rate, we have a Uniform Mediation Act, UMA. It allows you to practice in other states without, like Pro Hac Vice, if you're going to go be a lawyer in another state. Well, UMA allows mediators to go into other states. Now, I go into I'm in other states every week, except when I was with Archer. That being the case, UMA has exceptions to confidentiality that I don't have in my agreement to mediate forms. And so that's what I call a mini mediation within the mediation. So I want to flesh that out with the people with whom I am mediating. Like in Kloiber, we are in different states. And so it would be, and not every state was a UMA state. Because when you become a uniform act, it doesn't mean that every state, just 2/3, have bought into it. And the other states might have their own standards. I actually live in a state that doesn't buy into the UMA. I'll tell you what, the UMA is full of confidentiality exceptions. So if you do practice in another state and you don't have your own private agreement to mediate form that you're going over with your clients and that they sign or not, figure that one out too, that's important on the front end. UMA will attach if it's a UMA state, 2/3 of the states are, as I mentioned. But there are lots of exceptions, like, well, the first two exceptions that are across the board, everywhere, would be that confidentiality, there is no confidentiality if there is a threat of physical harm. There is no confidentiality if a decision that is made in the mediation places an elder or a child, vulnerable populations, at risk. UMA goes on to say there's no confidentiality if there is any crime, any discussion of a crime, and a crime that comes to light that has already been committed. Do you know how many mediations I have mediated where no one has filed their taxes? All kinds of one would say it's tax fraud, tax evasion, and this, that, and the other. And UMA would say, can't mediate that, can't talk about that. So just to, I'm always probably, if you're gonna zig, I might zag a little bit. I try not to do that, too often, but sometimes there are good reasons, and UMA can really clip you a lot if you're not aware of UMA. I'll give you another one of the exceptions would be there can't be any discussion if there has been any harm to federal property. So mediations that have to do with all of our state and national parks, a lot of it can't happen because the mediator has to go and tell people about what happened. I'm not that mediator. I'm going to hold people's confidences until I go to the grave, unless it's the two exceptions: physical harm that's threatened to each other, or a decision that's made that places a child or an elder in an abusive situation. But you need to know these things. I'm sure you do. It's just a little bit of a highlight, a review. When you open, highlighting decision-making opportunities is so key. So even how people want to sit in a room, how they want to talk with each other, if they want to meet in different configurations, what topics they want to talk about. I don't even presume that people want to do an opening. I'll ask, what's the pleasure? Do you all wish to give opening statements? And sometimes people will also say we thought you were experienced with this, of course we do opening statements. Okay, so you all would like to do an opening statement then because you thought I was experienced and I should know that. That's why I was asking. You gotta stay really, really grounded because when people are in conflict, they're very, very mercurial. And you're gonna be the one who gets those spears because the energy has got to land somewhere. So self-awareness is really, really important. But decision-making opportunities being highlighted at every turn. Because in my practice, when people begin to see they really do have a lot of autonomy. And that autonomy, however, might not fly with the other side or the other person or persons or sides. And then there's another decision-making opportunity for how it is that you want to be able to talk with the other side or convince the other side or how you're going to do that. So we have constant sort of little mini mediations, and some of those can be in caucus if they decide that. Then they'll come back together and actually do more of the work. And that can, I do some of that on the phone, do some of it in person, but everybody's coming together at some point. Inviting guidelines. I don't see mediators in other orientations inviting guidelines. I have seen some mediators say, basically, this is how I run my mediation. In essence, these are my guidelines. And it could be things like, there won't be any loud talking, there won't be any name calling. I'm sure everyone can be respectful. After all, everybody, wants respect. I don't do any of that. I invite them. Are there any requests that you have of each other or the room? Are there any requests that you have about how you're orienting to each other, going to have the conversation? And you'd really be amazed about what people will say. Sometimes it, it's like, request or no, I don't know, there might be one, might not be, we want to make sure that we, all stay in the same room, or if we're working with families, it's a big deal when someone can say, yeah, I'd like to know that she isn't going to go stomping off. She's going to stay here. We're going to really kind of get this done today. Or more in the corporate world, Could be, well, I need to make sure everybody knows that I'm going to have to step out, for a 30-minute phone call. It doesn't mean that I don't want to be here, but I'm going to have to do that. Simple little things like that. That's a guideline. It could also be that I just want everybody to know that I have no authority here today, and yet I will be the one who is requesting authority. So I'm not that person, but I just got to make sure everybody knows that. A lot of things come out when you ask, are there any requests that you have of each other for how you want to have a quality conversation today? Because I'll tell you what can really queer a deal would be people are going along quite well, and all of a sudden somebody says, well, I don't have that authority. Like, what? We have been working for this length of time. Why didn't you say that? Or I'm sorry, but I have got to get out of here. We were going to commit to 3 hours, and it's I got to leave early. Like, no, you committed to 3 hours. I got to leave early. And I got another little mini mediation to do right then and there. But things like that oftentimes get taken care of. You are providing a quality process. So you're asking these kinds of questions at the get-go. When you're working with multiple parties, which most of you almost always will, for me, multiple starts with 4, clients and counsel, and then beyond, where it can really be quite large. One of my favorite multi-party mediations that I did were 220 angry Jews in a synagogue, and that was such a joy. It was really hard, and it was really great. And they responded. I mean, we all do respond to these kinds of things. When you're working with multiple parties, do ask about roles. Do not assume with counsel that counsel's just there to be the advocate. I've had counsel educate me in more ways than one over the years, in ways that just take my breath away. Like, so you're working with 2 lawyers and the parties. I just want to check in with you about roles, not only what your title is and what brings you here, but how you see that your role will be here in the mediation. And I might get to one attorney, and he might say, like, kind of look at me like, understand? I represent him, like you're an idiot. That's my role. I'm like, right, I know you represent Joe. Any particular way that you'll be participating today in the mediation? I will be speaking and Joe will not be. There might be another lawyer sitting right next to him who's representing somebody else, and I'll say, well, actually, I'm going to work with that. I say, and you are, sir? Bill, and you're representing Amy. And your role and participation today is? To speak for you. So now we got 2 of them. So in some ways that's kind of easy. So, I welcome both of you to speak for your clients. I also have an ethical responsibility to both Amy and to Joe, to share with you, Joe and Amy, that you're welcome to speak. Now, I don't want you to if your client has advised, if your attorney has advised you not to, but you have every right and ability to check in with your counsel if, in fact, counsel will allow you, or you think it's appropriate or not. Just my ethical obligation is to make sure there's opportunity for voice around the table. I'm not going to go against resistance with resistance. I'm going to invite it. I'm going to welcome. And it's pretty rare that much time goes by when people are in full session where one of the clients doesn't have something to say, or they lean over, or they're writing a note, or something of that nature. But I want to go with the other experience, because this one happens so many times, where I'll say, so you're representing, you're the lawyer, let's say in mediation. So you're your client, and your name, sir, which I know is right, and you're representing John. Well, welcome to both of you. And your role here as attorney for John is to how we plan to participate, and I'm going to take it out. And Frank says, to do whatever John needs. I'm here to support John. John's here to talk with Amy. Lawyers say things like this all the time. And I think it's a higher level of practice that we're getting to actually in our country, where people are understanding more about the mediation process and how powerful it is when lawyers do respond that way. Because that's an amazing thing. Think of this trusted advisor who is there to support. And they might say, if things get out of hand, or if I think that, John's going to be talking about something that I don't think is appropriate, I'll say something, but no, I'm here to support John. So you get a little more nuance to it. That's educating the whole room. That, okay, so John wants to talk to Amy, right? And I might even say, like, John, is there a request that you have of Amy because you've come to talk to Amy that you want to make of Amy? See, this is the kind of work that a mediator from a transformative orientation, guided by relational theory, does. Everything is around self-determination on process and on outcome. So lastly, we talked about authority, using summary. That was lunch. There are ethical standards. We have the orientation that comes from the theory that guides our practice. And whatever that is, for me, it's a relational orientation. It's going to guide my purpose. What do I want to do? I always want to be fostering a shift from weakness to strength for the individual person, attorney, client, representative, whoever is at the table. And I always want to be fostering a shift out of self-absorption to becoming more responsive to others. So let me go back and give an example. If I said to John, who just informed his counsel, and his counsel said, I'm here to support you, buddy. He wants to be able to talk with Amy. And I'm guided by a relational orientation. My purpose is to foster an empowerment or recognition shift. Never, ever, ever to get people to do anything, and never, ever, ever to force, ever. But I will make the opportunity, because quality of the process, ethically, is that mediators are to make the opportunity for informed decision-making. Go back to self-determination, decision-making about what? You say it. Process and outcome. So I would say to John, so John, you want to be able to talk with Amy. Is there any request that you would want to make of Amy? She's right here. I've oriented them back to each other. He can now talk to Amy directly. The practice is to orient parties to each other. And John might say, he might look at his counsel for a glance, look at me. He don't want to do that. He's not, we'd say, strong enough to do that yet, because the belief is that people have incredible capacity. That just tells me that John, it's weakness, right? I'm weak all the time too. I don't force John. I just simply say, okay, just want you to know if at any time you've come to talk with Amy, you're welcome to do so. And if there's a request you want to make, you are more than free to do so. And then I keep moving on. We always want to have face saving for our clients, whoever they are. For me, the attorneys are as much my clients as the parties, and the parties are as much my clients as the attorneys. So purpose drives practice. The basic repertoire of skills, and I know today is not a 10 or 20 or 40-hour mediation training per se. This is what I call the basic repertoire. This is actually, because now borrowing from and also looking at other professions, this is the same skill set that the most experienced negotiators have. This is the same skill set that hostage taker experts are called in to do when people are like up on the ledge. It's an incredible skill set. Listening, reflection, open question, summary, check-in, silence, to make time for that thinking, Michael shared with us this morning, and process observation. I thought it might be fun if we took one and maybe 1.5 of these skills and have you see what it's like through a relational theory lens. And you might like it. And if you don't, it's okay too, because you're always welcome in my practice. So relational listening. I'm going to do a time check here. It is 5:02. We are going to break at 2:45. Is that it? Something like that, about 50 minutes? I'd like for you to think about, I'm going to put you in an exercise. I want you to pair up. I do not want groups of 3. I want you to have groups of 2. And if it's just kind of comfortable for you to stay in a group of 3, we'll get uncomfortable and go find somebody else. If you're not sure if there's somebody else, raise your hand because someone's looking for you, because there'll be a natural order of things. When a mediator listens from a relational foundation, transformative mediator listens in a way that doesn't do these things. We don't fix, we don't tell, we don't agree with, we don't join in, we don't disagree with, we don't align with, we don't advise, and we don't dismiss. And we could add a whole host of other what we don't do to that. And you might be like, so what the heck do I do? Right? I can see the looks on your faces. Well, I should try it. Find a partner. Think of something you feel strongly about. Something you feel strongly about. Oh, that would be easy. I'm coming this land of politics just today, right? What's one thing you feel strongly about? I mean, I'm marveling at your amazing weather. And I'm thinking, oh my God, honestly, a thought that raced through my head when I was walking through the parking lot is, if we screw this up, we might not have weather like this in my lifetime, anymore, because I am a strong believer in, global warming and things of that nature. That would be like a topic for me. I also can't stand littering. It makes me crazy. I live in Baltimore City. I'll walk behind people and I take a piece of gum and there off goes the wrapper. I'm like, oh my God. And I'm always getting things like, hey, there's your wrapper. Or I'll pick it up for them. I'll say, hey, I've thrown it away for you. Don't worry about it. I know I live in the city with you too. We're going to keep our city clean, right? Whatever. I've got all my own personal reactivity to different things. So do you. So think of something you feel strongly about. Find a partner, decide who is going to speak first, and the other person is going to be the relational listener, the mediator. Listening in that way. That's it. All you have to do. Do anything else. Listen without fixing, without agreeing with, without disagreeing with, without telling them, without advising them, without dismissing them. You got the idea? All right, so something you feel strongly about, decide who's going to talk first, and the other person, and I will keep track of time for you. Let's have some discussion. It'll be brief. What was it like? A couple experiences. And what was it like to be listened to in this way? It was only 3 minutes. What was it like? It was hard. So when you were being listened to, what was hard about it? It's crazy, isn't it? This is a very, very Western experience. We're so used to people doing what? Interrupting us. We live in a culture where people interrupt us quite regularly. So what made it hard to be uninterrupted? And what was hard? Right? So it's like they're looking for a relationship, there's no relationship, and what made it hard? That they're working. Right? No, pardon me? It wasn't rewarding because what were you looking for? Affirmation, feedback, etc. What makes it hard is because we have to work a lot harder and figure things out, right? No one's sort of interrupting us or kind of giving us their spiel or their take, whatever, that we can even react to, if you will. So one of the experiences is that it can be hard because the person who's speaking then really needs to figure it out. Said a little differently, when someone has an experience that is hard, they tend to figure it out a heck of a lot faster when they're not interrupted. We know that from research. What's another experience that you had? Being listened to in this way. Heard it in the front row. Great. Other experiences. Didn't feel any judgment. What was that like? Refreshing. Yeah, it's refreshing to be able to speak about something you feel strongly about without judgment. What else? Other experiences. what it was like to be listened to in this way. Yeah, I had a chance to get my entire point out without being interrupted. And what was that like? With a big smile?
No, I mean, especially if it was somebody, like if you have family, and they're not usually listened to, or they can't, they're told to be quiet, or to not speak, they can finally get their whole point out.
So especially if one or you comes from a context where you're told to be quiet, or you don't get a chance to speak fully, it can be a very different and new experience. And you said with a big smile on your face, it's good. Others, did a number of you have a positive experience with it? Yeah. It is countercultural though. So what we know in research is that when people can speak fully and get their whole story or point across, and without being interrupted, they themselves not only feel more refreshed, and it can be hard work for some, especially if you're not clear. So if we go back to our theory and look at empowerment and recognition, the empowerment shift opportunity is when someone is confused, unsure, right? And so you're listening this way for a mere 3 minutes. It's quite powerful for fostering that empowerment shift. What was it like, on the other hand, for all of you who are mediator listening, when you were doing that listening? Was it hard? Was it easy? What was it like?
It's hard to listen and not allow your facial expression to indicate what you're showing you for that.
So it's hard to listen.
You have to almost be a poker face to follow it.
Yeah, if you're going to go by these terms, you almost have to be a poker face, because it'd be hard to not show your facial expressions, because your facial expressions might give away if you agree with or disagree with him. You know, you've got all this stuff going on right in the face. We're not called to have to be poker face, but it's a really key piece, because we do need to have something else that is mirroring the speaker. And so if the speaker is kind of amped up, the speaker is really serious about something, we're going to listen with a seriousness. So it's hard to do, might be one of the responses. What about others when you were listening in this way? Others when you were listening like a mediator.
What about the technique?
What was the experience like? Nodding?
Say again?
You're asking a question?
Yes.
Tell me your experience first. What was the experience like when you were mediating, listening in this way?
Oh, good. Now, I have a question.
So whenever you're working with a smart ass, be able to say, we love them, right? So you're like, bring it up. So it was all good, but you have a question. All right, so the question comes first.
It's a general question, nothing to do with our power.
But a general question.
Yeah, right. And that is, if you're a mediator and you are listening, and you tend to nod your head a little bit, which is sort of an affirmation that you're hearing what's being said.
Like I'm doing with you
Are you
now.
falling into the trap of agreeing with, aligning with, or otherwise, getting...
So Bob's asking a question that if you have a tendency as a mediator, when you listen to bob your head, to nod, that do you fall into the trap of doing one of these things? What do we think? It's a great question. It's a real question.
Well, I think you do it with one, we're going to end up probably doing it.
There's your answer, right? If you're aware, as you are, and have some self-awareness about whatever your own tendencies are, just make sure you're doing it for everybody. I like that whole impartiality and neutrality piece for mediators. I like to say I'm multi-partial, right? So if I've got something that I do for one, I'm going to make sure that I do it for everybody. That is absolutely one way to go about it. Another is you'll get calibrated by your clients, right? They'll let you know. And it could be something like if you're, bobbing or nodding your head, and it's only when you speak and it's not when you speak. Well, I can assure you that whether it's in the hallway because he wants to preserve, mediator face, or whether he's just really agitated, he's going to say, how come you're agreeing with her? That's ridiculous. You know, so you realize, oh, there's been something in what it is that I've done. So be open and allow your clients to be able to modulate you in that way. Is nodding of head helpful when you mediate like this? It actually can be, because it's affirmative that someone's on the record, whether you agree with them or whether you don't. They're alive, they've got a story, they're on the record. That's something else that the research says about voice. People want to get on the record, which is one of the reasons why it's become so popular in the landscape of litigation and for lawyers, the whole on the record kind of piece. So many people report that it is awesome and it's great to be listened to like this, but it can be very uncomfortable because it's not how they're normally listened to. And so just to finish sentences, finish thoughts, link one thought with another, can be, I gotta sort of figure this out. And mediation is a decision-making forum. It's why we listen in this way. Mediators will also report, in the early days, before we were really talking about self-awareness, a lot of mediators would listen in this way and say, well, I'm going to do this anyway. Or it's what I do. And I've got something good I can tell them, and I know this has worked. It's worked for 10 other people just like they are. And there are all these reasons, and I can agree with them because I think they got a good point. And I can disagree with them because I would never fly in court. And I could align with them. I'm not aligning with them, but some people are just more likable than others. Advising them, I'm not supposed to advise them, I know, but come on. They're here, they can't afford lawyers, so of course I'm going to advise them a little bit. Or, dismiss, no, I'm not ever going to dismiss them, but some people just have ridiculous claims. We've come a long way, baby, where most mediators are saying, okay, we're going to not do that stuff. But I want to come back to that stuff, because I think that stuff is really real. And I think it's what makes us human. And I think that if it comes up for you or comes up for me, the best I can do is to be aware of it, so I can then set it aside. Because that's what our ethical practice is calling upon us to do. It is not calling upon us to be completely stone-faced and devoid of any human characteristics. In fact, it's calling upon us, as Michael reminded us this morning, to really step up and enter humanity, especially the suffering of others. So listening in a relational way is very disciplined. It will never come as easy as even breathing. You'll always need to make a decision about that. It goes directly back to our ethical standards and how it is that people can make more informed decisions. Reflection skill, but before that. When and if you were aware that you had a tendency that was getting in the way of listening, this mediator listening, relational listening, were there other things you would add to what got in the way in addition to agreeing, disagreeing, dismissing, putting down, judging, etc.? Anything you'd add that got in the way that you were aware of? And were you listening to someone and thought, oh, I've got a thought here, like a little bubble. I'm going to set it aside. What was in that bubble? Anybody want to share? Yeah. Beautiful. Drawing conclusions. Were any of you listening as we're drawing some conclusions? We put that into the same category as what we call a transactional tendency. They're not wrong. They're okay. But we don't do them when we're mediating. You with me on that? It gets in the way of establishing rapport.
But how can you establish rapport without acknowledging someone's pain or saying, I get it?
Do you see anything up there that says that you don't acknowledge?
Adopt, adhere to, whatever.
Adopt, adhere to, different from acknowledgement. People need and love to be acknowledged. They're on the record. That's what the next skill of reflection actually does. You'll love that. But the piece about adopting somebody else's worldview, You are always working with at least two people. What would it be like if you were working with a mediator who adopted the other guy's worldview and not yours? You ever had that experience? You've had it in life. You don't want to create it in mediation, at least as best as you can. Nothing's perfect. This is the starting gate. This is the 3-minute exercise of where it all begins. Because as mediators, it's the inside job. You can look internally. As human beings, we have incredible capacity to be reflective, both in the moment, like Mike was talking to us, mindfulness, but also afterwards as we reflect back on our practices. What did I just do? What kind of insight did I just have? That's what mediating through a relational lens is all about. And our transactional tendencies are what gets in the way of the ethical principle of neutrality and impartiality. I know, it's kind of heavy, because even for me too, it's like, gosh, I really hope that I was as impartial as I intend to be, but I know, I may have leaned, or may have slipped. And when that happens for me, I usually just call myself out on it. Like, I just said that, I shouldn't have said that, because actually, you're probably not going to like to hear this, but you've got just as important of a point. Whatever's important for the two of you all, that's what's important to me. I'm going to get in and I'm going to get out on that. Because no mediator is perfect and no process is perfect. But this is where it all starts, and everything is governed by our ethics. I thought we might dip our big toe into the second skill. Listening is where it all starts. But you add the skill of reflection to it. And over the years, came out of the 70s, we had like paraphrasing. Some of you have talked about reframing. What reflection is different. But it's in the same arena. It's different though, because a paraphrase is listening to someone and then speaking back to them what you think they meant, or what you heard them to say. A reflection is not that. A reflection is someone speaks and you reflect back exactly what they said in their own words. Why is it helpful? Why is it helpful as we think about the whole orientation of practice being relational, to pay attention to the fractures in interaction, help people restore them, foster an empowerment shift, foster a recognition shift, offer a reflection that is using someone's exact words, because people are more likely to hear themselves and think a little bit more clearly. The other person is more likely to hear it exactly as it was stated. This time, though, through a different messenger. So they've got twice a bite at the apple of being able to listen to the other person or get what they're trying to say. It also does an amazing thing for the brain. And that is, it provides a pause where oxygen can flood the brain again. Because in conflict, what we know, we're wired this way also, in terms of self-preservation and protection. We are wired to have our oxygen to our prefrontal cortex, where we do all of our executive functioning, our thinking, decision-making. We're wired to have that actually cut down, slimmed down, not completely shut off, while our limbic brain and our brainstem down here gets flooded in conflict, because that's what allows us to leave, fight, flight, freeze. So when you offer a reflection, it allows even the most erudite person, the most articulate person, the moment to allow oxygen to go back up to the brain. So that what tends to happen is they'll say something like, exactly, because it's what they intended, or no, and they'll add, or they'll edit, because what they said is not exactly what they meant. You have no idea when someone says something, if it's exactly what they meant when they're in conflict, or if it's something else. You don't have any idea, or even pretend to. It's, no one knows that, except the person himself or herself. So the reflection allows that editing process, which fosters clarity, empowerment, and fosters being more responsive to the other person. So that's why we do it. We do it very, very purposefully. And it is an art form. So I'd like you to have the experience. And you can stay with your same partner. That's probably the easiest thing to do today, although it's so fun for you to get around and meet other people. Those of you who came to different spots in the room, come on back. This is what we'll do this time, a little bit differently. So you get it, reflection, it's a one-to-one experience. Even if I'm working with 10 people, I'm going to reflect the speaker. You want it to be brief, you want to get to the real essence, use their words, and it supports empowerment and recognition. Okay, find a partner. This time, think of something you're unsure about. It could be you're unsure about whether you're going to stay the night here, or you're unsure about what's happening back at the office. Oh, I didn't mean to distract everybody. You're unsure about your vacation plans. You're unsure about something that you need to do. Whatever it is. You with me? I know you're going to have to decide which thing, right? There are probably 10 things you're unsure about. It's completely, all of us have things on our mind. Find a partner, totally confidential between the two of you. Again, decide who will go first. Who will be the mediator listener? Listen in the same way that you were before, but add to it the reflection skill. Add to it the reflection skill. So it won't be just necessarily 3 minutes of silence as the other person was speaking fully. It'll be 5 minutes where the person will speak fully, and at the time when they put a period at the end of what they were saying, offer reflection. Offer reflection. You with me on that? Do you want me to demonstrate it real quick? Chuck, can we do that? Give me a line of something that you're not sure about. I could do it to you. Yeah, but you'd have to do the reflection. Okay, all right. So I'm really not sure with Archer, whether I should, on this whole losing a lot of weight, I'm really not sure if I should share with him a couple pictures that I have of how bony his shoulder blades are right now, to show him the point of he's really losing weight way too quickly. Reflection. Exactly my language. No, I understand. Because you know what will happen when someone's really into it, they'll probably say oh, you don't understand. If you want to come to my house, then you messed up all your report. That was pretty good, right? He got my language. Did he get all my language? No. Is it okay? Sure, he did. That was a nice job. If he had added to it of the shoulder, because I really have some energy about that, right? Of his shoulder blades, then I may have likely been something like, yes, exactly. That allows me to then continue on to my story, as opposed to, if the reflection had never happened in the mediation, I'm going to come back to that story probably 3 or 4 times. Because when we feel unsure about something, it's like trying to, if you're in the dark and there's a light bulb and, you're trying to look for the little string or the fan that hangs down, you're in the dark, it's like here, and, is it there? That's what it's like when you're speaking, especially when there's somebody else with whom you're in conflict right next to you, and you're not sure about something. You'll say it again, you'll say it again, you'll say it again. A reflection helps to anchor it and then allows the person the opportunity to become a little bit more unconfused as they then meander further. So Chuck had done that, which he did beautifully, and I say, yeah, exactly. It's really this particular picture. Let's stay with me, do one more. It's this particular picture about shoulder blades. I just took it yesterday, and it scared the heck out of me. Yep. Exactly. does. You're right, it scares the hell out of me. Yeah, and I just don't know if I should show that to him or not. Question? He's saying exactly what I'm saying, which is he's amazing. And you just don't know. And he's also doing it in his Chuck-like way. Which I can say since we had dinner last night together. I want you to reflect in your, whoever you are, in your beautiful person way. Do it in your way, right? You're not a robot. You're not somebody else. You're you. So you offer the reflection of exactly somebody else's language in your own style, in your own way. That is not your mediation style, by the way. Or I should say, when people speak about mediation styles, that discussion has to do with an orientation to practice. We all have our own personal style. So I want you to listen and reflect your partner in the exact way, beautiful way that Chuck reflected me, and in your own style. So first of all, let's give it to Chuck. Way to go, Chuck. Good. All right. Okay, you guys ready? The spa continues. I'll keep track of time. Something you're unsure about, and your mediator listener is going to listen and offer reflection for as long as 5 minutes takes. So welcome back. So as a capstone to this, you just got some great feedback. We're able to give feedback as well. What were the learnings? What did it take to listen and offer reflections like this? What did it take to do that? We all did it. Oh, maybe I better ask the questions first. What was that like? What was that experience like? That listening without having someone judge you or dismiss you or minimize you or agree with you or disagree with you, and reflecting back exactly what you had to say. What was that like? What was that experience like? Different? Great? What was it? You like to think you do it because it's what a person ought to do. Why? What's the experience like? It's challenging when it's being done for you because we hear ourselves. Isn't it powerful? We can just be kind of chatting and go conversation, it goes quick. We hear ourselves, and someone has given us the gravity experience of listening to ourselves, right? And it could be there's something really special and important that we've said, and other times because we're speaking about confusion, it's an opportunity to edit and clear out, kind of part the fog, if you will. It can be hard, the experience itself. For others, from the first two comments I heard, that was great, it was good. Why is it also great and good? Right alongside being hard. What's great and good about it? Boy, someone feels a lot better. I mean, they have showed up. They are right there on the record, if you will. I matter. I have value. Those of you who are interested in rapport building and affirmation can be given to people, we think about it as validation. You do not have to lose any of your neutrality when you offer a reflection. Someone shows up and they're on the record. What else is a powerful aspect of reflection as it relates to that other person or three people in the mediation room? What happens for them? They hear it twice, and they may not have heard it the first time. So you might be giving them the opportunity to even hear it for the first time. And that is what people will report. Like, well, I've never heard that before. But it's exactly what the person said, because they're in their own pattern dynamic, so they couldn't hear each other anyway. It also, for the other person present, that, by the way, is an empowerment shift. For the other person present, it allows them to not only hear the person in a different way, that's a recognition shift. It allows them themselves to take in new information and get clear, right? Ah, I didn't know that data point. And sometimes it comes out like, why didn't you say that before? Right? The meter just had reflected it twice. So it's a very, very powerful skill. It is a skill art form set. It will always take discipline for you to do it because you'll need to have self-awareness. I will go to the grave still working on self-awareness so that you can set aside whatever biases or baggage you have that moment, that day. It changes, you know. So we can really do this work to breathe life into self-determination and truly what the promise of mediation provides. Last piece, and we're going to go on a break. This experience of it being hard and also feeling good is part of the conflict experience. Remember how we started this morning with your own conflict experiences and mine? The neuroscience of resistance is that the brain is lazy. It's true. The brain burns up more glucose than any other organ in the body. So by design, it is intended to be highly efficient, which can make it lazy because the brain searches for what is familiar. We have to do that to get by in life. Think about all the things you did just today that were completely almost like second nature or rote. You know, you brushed your teeth, you got out of bed, turned off your alarm, you checked your email, the things that just, because the brain grooves, creates new grooves, as plasticity. The brain is therefore in conflict also looking for what is familiar, especially an old dynamic. Or maybe even for people who are strangers.
Look at me and say, "Oh, God."
And especially a young dynamic. Yeah! An old dynamic will look itself. So resistance really comes out of that. So we want to meet resistance at the door. This is Michael referenced Rilke, whom I love. Rumi is another amazing poet. Those of you who like poetry, Michael and I love poetry. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Open the door to your enemies. You know, laughing, inviting, and welcoming them in. Because that's really what conflict is. And we are given the amazing and grand privilege. It's quite a privilege when people invite you into their worlds to be their mediator. Probably no greater place on earth to hear people's intimacies, hear their foibles, hear their weaknesses, hear what they're unsure about, hear the bigness, hear it all. Research, ethics, and practice, all combined, all converged, create a relational practice. You can choose to practice relationally or not, but I would encourage you, if it is a not, we are always welcoming you to at least try it out. Because our field is moving pretty quickly to ferret out what is a settlement conference versus what really is mediation. And every single person in this room as a trusted advisor can either recommend and be part of as a support team for people in conflict, still advising them, but in a supportive way, hearing the other person. And everyone in this room who is a senior advanced mediator, whether it's in your second career or something that you're doing as part of your current career, might consider the opportunities that you may have missed in your mediations a little bit differently. I miss opportunities in my practice all the time because there's no way a mediator can capture every opportunity that presents itself for a quality interaction and for a decision that's made. But if we become a little bit more aware of what's possible and what is shown to us now through theory and research and people's anecdotal stories about what matters to them, we might just do things a little bit differently and really add to the 9th standard of ethical practice, which is to give back to the field. So we'll go on break, and we'll close our mediation part as we move into something around purely communication and everyday practices. Thank you for the mediation.